For the past week, I've been going through Russell Brunson's book, Traffic Secrets, and we've been sharing some insights about certain topics, specific topics. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos, by the way, and this is your first video in this series, then jump over to the playlist and you can find anything we've been talking about with Traffic Secrets. And if you want a copy of the free book, you can get a link in the description and get a free copy. I want to bring up something very important. It's about my background and it's about the transition of media. And I want to show you first, I want to show you this first right here. I don't know if you're going to see this too well. But basically, it's on page 106 and 107. There's some pages right here. If you can see that. If you see that right there. Do you see it? Do you see it? All right. So what is it? And I'll explain it to you quickly. Is this that, before we used to have, or we still do, but things have changed, right, in media. I come from the newspaper world. I was a paper boy, and I started at the age of 14. Used to wake up every morning at 4:30 in the morning along with my dad. My dad used to go off to his business, and I would start riding my bike and delivering newspapers every morning. I did that for many, many years, from riding a bike to driving a car. And I used to be the paper boy with the most newspapers in the organization. And I was the only one allowed to do that because I had a system. That's a story for another day. But the transition of media over the years has been this. Let's start off with newspapers. So we have newspapers that has transitioned into blogs. Okay, we have a TV show that has turned into Facebook TV show. I'm sorry, talk show. Radio has turned into podcasting. A sitcom has turned into YouTube, and I'm going to touch on that in just a second. Reality TV has turned into Instagram, and newspapers into blogs. So if we break this down 1 through 5, talk shows have turned into Facebook. We've seen that because in talk shows, there's this conversation that takes place. And in Facebook and Facebook groups, we're always seeing that people are having a conversation. They either start a group, they have a conversation, what do you think, and all that stuff. So that's the talk show. Then, of course, in radio, which is unfortunately a dying art form, has now turned into podcasts, which has a booming. It's like almost everybody has a podcast these days, right? Now, the one with sitcom, YouTube, I think at this time, this book was written, was a little bit more funny, random stuff. I don't think it's that anymore. I think that's changed. I think not the book's outdated, but YouTube has morphed into something way better. And it's something that I realized, and personally I love. I like to use YouTube the most. Obviously, we're here on YouTube because the algorithm is serving for education. It's serving for knowledge. Yes, there's news. Yes, there's talk shows. Yes, there's podcasting. But YouTube is the platform where people go to look for answers, and Google has really done that. If you don't know this, but Google owns YouTube and bought it many years ago. But it serves as the platform to serving people with more education and training and information to help grow. And I think that's really important. This is why personally I have a hard time with like TikTok. I remember before TikTok was out, it was called Musical.ly, and it was all about artists, and it was fun. But then when it just became about, mostly at that time, when it transitioned into entertainment and it was constantly like making skits, didn't really appease to me so much because that's not really why I like social media so much. So there is a gap for that. So I think when this book was written, I don't even think TikTok was there in this category at that time. And then we have the reality TV, which is Instagram, which shows like maybe someone's everyday life, and newspapers have turned into blogs. So obviously we've seen a transition in media, and the use of this media over the years has changed. And of course, they're going to change even more into the future. One of the things that's not even here is X or Twitter. It's not even in this book yet. And what we know is X has become the media platform for, almost everyone. Some of the greatest minds are on there. And it's, if you have a thought, you get it up on X. If you're the news, you get it on there. If you're government, you even use X. So that's not even here. But what's most important about all this, and even though the mediums have changed, the reality is you have to choose a medium that you're going to be on. And as a coach, you have to choose the medium that is best and most easiest for you to use. Okay, some people like audio only. Some people like just blogging and writing. And there's a lot of great resources for that today. And some people like video. You have to choose the one that comes most natural to you, most interesting. And when you're starting off, you don't want to be on all of them. That's just too much. It's too much work. It's overwhelming. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't be on all of them. What you have to do is, number one, know your audience, know where they're at. And by the way, I think it was earlier pages here, in page 20 through 25, it's about knowing your audience, who they are, who you're going to serve, and then where do they congregate? Where are they? What social media platforms are they using? And whether it's social media or not social media, are they using TV? Are they still reading newspapers, right? Are they still reading blogs? Whatever it may be, whatever platform, whether it's a little older or new, your content and your ads should be in the place where they congregate. So that way they see it, they grab, and then now you have their attention. So that's what matters first, is knowing where the audience is congregating. Then you have to make a decision. And this is something I tell all my clients. You have to make a decision. Are you going to be written, audio, or video? Now, if we were to break this down, video is the most powerful medium because you're getting audio and video and people can see you. The second is going to be audio, and the third is going to be reading. Now, they're all important. However, the good thing with video is you can record a video. Those who need to see visually can see you, build the trust that way. But you can also take video and separate the audio and create a podcast out of it. So you could do that too. So it gives you the two options. That's the good thing about that. Now, the other option is if you're a writer, you might just like blogging. And there's a lot of great platforms out there that have come out that are now like Ghost, Substack, and there's so many more. Of course, you could have a WordPress blog, but things have been changing and growing, and people still build a list and make money even from writing. So if you never thought about doing that, you should highly consider it, and you can make a lot of money. There's a very important thing under all this. There's a very valuable thing about collecting emails and building your list, like we talked about in previous videos. If you haven't seen those videos, go back and check them out. But there's a very important thing about building your list. And today, and this is on page 108, if you can see that right there, hopefully you can. Today, direct mail, remember the good old mailman inbox, which we still have. Today, direct mail is email, okay? And email is very important. Email marketing is critical. It's where you've already have the trust and you're building personal relationships. And I'll leave you with this story. I mentioned earlier that I was a paper boy for many years. One thing I used to do every month, I don't know why, but I used to write a letter to all my clients. I'd give them a monthly update. So I literally, this is when I first got my first computer, by the way. I would use Microsoft Word and I'd type out this long letter. I'd give them updates on my life and how school was going. And I would share, different stories personally about myself. And I would print out all these letters, like 500 letters. And sometimes they were 2 pages long. And I would fold it, I'd add it to the newspaper and I'd fold it within the newspaper. So it's like they're getting a newspaper plus a letter. Now, one day, some of my customers didn't like this letter. They're like, what the heck is this? Now, I wasn't promoting anything because that's not allowed. But in the letter was like this stories about what's going on in my life. Well, some of my customers didn't like that. They're like, what's this? They called my manager at the newspaper company. And they said, hey, I'm getting this letter from the paper boy, and what's this about? So my manager calls me and says, hey, what's this letter you're putting inside the newspaper? So I showed my manager the letter. I said, hey, man, once a month I just write a letter to my clients and give them updates about me. And he just looked at me and laughed at me. He said, man, you're something else. You're something else. He said, as long as you don't promote anything and you don't put an advertisement, it's okay. This is okay. But just don't, this is the only phone call I got. Just don't give that guy one of your letters. So I was like, okay. So 499 letters every month where I would share about what was going on in my life. And actually, the cool thing is, the coolest part about this, and you'll find this happens with you in your coaching business, is that people will write back. And my clients, they would write back to me, not all of them, maybe 30 of them would write letters back to me, sometimes once a year or every so often. They would leave a letter for me and say, thank you so much for the letters. They're so great. I really appreciate you sharing your life. And they would even give me some insight about their life and what's going on with them. It was really cool. And that's the power of direct mail or email marketing. You're building a relationship with your audience, your clients. So be mindful of that. It makes it more personal. It builds more trust. And that's what you want to do as you're getting your message out there, building your client base, whether they bought from you or they even haven't bought from you. They don't have to be a customer yet. You can even start an email list even before that. Okay, I know we've talked about quite a few things here, but I just wanted to share that with you and go out there and make something happen.